Welcome to the Solex podcast, where we discuss changing the way people approach their health. Everything at its most fundamental level is energy and frequency, and we are proud to be at the forefront of this field, even though we are just scratching the surface. Jen, I've heard a quote, and maybe everyone's heard it, and it's, eyes are the windows to the soul. And someone kind of modified that and they said, but your poop is your windows to your health, your body. Does that resonate with you at all?
I love that quote because it's true. It's true. The body tells so many stories by what it eliminates. The problem is nobody really likes to talk about it. And nobody likes to talk about it because it kind of is an intimate thing but we all do it.
And it's gross.
I mean, yeah, there's no question about that.
And it makes people laugh for some reason.
It's gross. It makes people laugh. It makes people sick to their stomach. Mm-hmm. Most people I ask about their poop they say to me, I don't know. I don't even look. And I say to them, I need you to look.
Yeah.
And there's a reason for that. Because everything that we eliminate, bowel movement-wise, does tell us a very significant story about what's going on internally.
So, Jen, why don't we, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into kind of this area of expertise?
Absolutely. So, I have been a practitioner now for probably when I say probably, I've really been in the health and wellness industry, I feel like my entire life. But I've been a practitioner in the health and wellness industry as a sole proprietor since 2012. But my story didn't begin there. My story began back when I was really an infant, and I was quite sick as a child. Not that I had anything wrong with me, but I had common colds all the time. I had ear infections. I was on antibiotics quite often. And then when I turned about 16 years old, I actually started getting a lot of urinary tract infections, which were controlled primarily through antibiotics in the Western medicine. At that time, there wasn't a whole lot to go along with Eastern medicine or holistic medicine, so it was just the approach that my mother knew how to take at the time. But what it did do is that meant that literally every month or every other month, I was on some sort of an antibiotic to control these UTIs that were debilitating. Fast forward, what that meant was that I destroyed the integrity of my gut. I destroyed so many aspects of my health by taking those antibiotics over and over again. I had chronic fatigue syndrome. I have dealt with constipation for quite some time. And so when I became a practitioner, the one thing that I chose as my niche was gut health because I needed to essentially heal myself from all of the backlash or backstory of my childhood as it presents to me today.
Gut health has a lot to do with pooping, right?
That is correct.
So why don't we start with what would you say would be the ideal poop from maybe start to finish, and then I think we'll then go through each process and each step.
Okay.
Throughout the episode.
Sure.
But yeah, describe to me from start, maybe it's from eating.
So let's go. Actually, let's go ahead and I'm going to start with the process of it first.
Okay.
Because I think that's very important to understand how it even becomes a poop, if you will. But digestion actually starts in the limbic system, so the brain. So it's really not even about taking that first bite of food. That's not where digestion starts. If you think about walking past a bakery or having your mom bake cookies for you, you start to smell something, and that triggers the brain to start the digestive process to say, you know what, I'm hungry. Or, wow, that smells really good. And the digestive process actually starts right there. The limbic system also has a way of creating the digestive pathway as it's starting by means of, it can be through emotional eating. There can be emotional aspects to that. It can be whether it's, somebody that has maybe a little bit of an easy eating disorder. Maybe it's they don't want to eat a lot, or they do want to eat a lot, or they binge eat and then, they release it, if you will. So once it starts in the brain, then it's the mouth. So it's whatever you're actually putting inside of your mouth that then you start to chew. When you start to chew, your body releases what's called amylase. Amylase starts to break down the carbohydrates of the foods in your mouth. Then it goes down to the digestive system, or your stomach, I should say, where you have one of three pieces to a cocktail.
Okay.
Okay. And this cocktail, these three pieces of cocktail, help to break down the food that you have just consumed. So you've got hydrochloric acid, and we can touch a little bit on these because you're looking at me like, what in the world are you talking about? We've got hydrochloric acid. We've got enzymes that are being produced by the pancreas, and we also have bile being produced by the liver that is being stored in the gallbladder. So that helps break down that process. Then it goes into the small intestine where nutrients are absorbed. Once that process happens, it goes to the large intestine where the elimination process starts to happen. So those toxins, or what the body doesn't need, the fibers, the excess junk, essentially, is then moved through the body and out, which creates the elimination, so the poop. So if you have a perfect poop, you're looking at a brown log, if you will. If you've got little pellets, you've got one thing going on. If you've got a little more of a mush effect, you've got something else going on, and we'll talk about those in a minute.
Cool. So let's start with when you talk about mindful eating.
Yes.
And I know we're going to cover a lot other than that kind of contributes to poop health or healthy poops. Is there such a thing called poop health?
I mean,
maybe more digestive health.
I guess digestive health. If you think about poop health, no, that could be something. It just depends on how you look at it. Okay. Because if you have
coining that term,
if you have like little pebbles, for instance, little pebbles are going to be an indication that you have a lack of hydration going on.
Okay.
Right. So if you have something a little bit more on the mushier side, you're going to think about the lack of fiber in your diet. Mm-hmm. So poop health, yes. Digestive health, it's kind of upstream from that.
Okay, cool. So with the mindful eating then, I talked to you yesterday and I've heard you talk about how when you're eating in a mindful state or a parasympathetic state, so you're calm, that rest and digest that you talk about, can you maybe describe that ideal situation for eating?
Sure.
Because when we don't eat correctly or we don't have that good circumstance for eating, it can affect our poop. It can affect the digestive system.
Correct.
And you also explained when we're not in that parasympathetic state, it also kind of compromises the digestive system in the body in processing that food efficiently or ideally, right?
That's correct. Because if you're in a very mindful state, that parasympathetic state that you just talked about, that rest and digest state, that is a state that allows the body to do the processes that it is designed to do. So if you're creating a digestive process for your body, you're eating lunch, right? And you're sitting at your desk and you're mindful eating, you're taking some deep breaths, you're putting your fork down between each bite, you are chewing thoroughly. Yeah, I just have to say this. I used to make fun of my grandmother for chewing 30 to 40 times. I was like, when is she ever going to stop chewing? But now being older, I look back and think, oh my gosh, she had it all right all along. We would just inhale our food and be ready for the next thing. But the truth is that in order for our bodies to absorb the nutrients from the food that we're taking in, right? We make the choices. We make the healthy choices. Does this plate of food have enough protein? Does it have enough carbohydrates? Does it have enough fats? We tend to be like, okay, I need to eat more salads versus, a hamburger or French fries. But really, it's also the state that your body's in when you're consuming that food that makes a huge difference. And that's because it gives your body time to actually absorb the nutrients from your small intestine through your bloodstream, basically, and into the parts of your body that need it. Is it your brain? Is it a healing process? Is it just pulling out the vitamins and minerals that it actually needs from your food? Now, if you are in a sympathetic state, you're go, 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 you're eating on the fly, you're throwing food in your mouth as you're running down the hallway, you're just, you can't shovel it in fast enough. One, you haven't even prepared your digestive system for food because you're doing it so quickly. Right? The second aspect is your body's like, I don't know what to do with this. Am I supposed to be calming this person down? Am I supposed to be working with the vagal system? Am I supposed to be working with the brain? Or am I supposed to be working with digestion? So digestion will typically take a back seat to all of that.
And you're talking about energy expenditure throughout the body.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yep. Where does the body need to send the most energy to be the most proactive and efficient at that time? And digestion always falls short.
That's a bummer.
It's a bummer, but it's true.
Okay, so once we set the stage for good eating and preparing our body to digest, then as we consume that food, chew it thoroughly.
Yes, because
just think
your
of
stomach,
Jen's grandma 30 to 40 times, right?
I know. And your stomach does not have teeth.
Okay.
So the chewing starts in your mouth. What you do not chew in your mouth and you put into your stomach, that's when your body has to break down the rest of that food.
And it'll wait until it's completely broken down before it starts sending it through?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
No, there's a transit time.
Okay, so now we're starting to enter the stomach. So it goes through the esophagus into the stomach.
Correct.
And we have a lot of things going on there. And then we can talk about the cocktail that you briefly mentioned.
Yes.
This delicious cocktail.
I don't know if I would go with delicious, but
and
yes,
enzymes.
exactly.
I bet it looks great. Have you ever seen a picture maybe?
Well,
of what
okay.
all that looks like together? I'm just curious.
I mean,
on the rocks, salt.
that sounds disgusting.
Okay,
but if you do think about it, if you've ever vomited before, you're going to see that bile. You're going to feel that acid come up your esophagus. So that is the acid that is in your stomach that is supposed to stay in your stomach and break down that excess foods.
Okay. That's why your throat hurts.
Yep.
That's why your mouth tingles when you're sick and you throw up.
Yep.
Or acid reflux.
Acid reflux. Yep. So acid reflux is oftentimes people think of acid reflux as having too much acid, too much hydrochloric acid in their stomach. But really, it's actually opposite. You don't have enough hydrochloric acid to tell the body to close that esophageal sphincter. So you have the acids that are constantly coming up. So that's what's called acid reflux.
They're having that churning. But if that
sphincter
isn't closed.
That's correct.
Okay.
It'll come back up.
So it's not a matter of too much hydrochloric acid.
No,
it's just that valve isn't closed, which is typically signals have been sent that that we have enough hydrochloric acid. But if there's not enough, that valve isn't receiving that signal.
That's correct.
Am I understanding that right?
Yes, but also if someone's creating too much acid, the same thing will happen.
Oh, okay.
So there is a fine balance. Yes.
Oh.
But most people have the lack of hydrochloric acid. Most people don't have enough hydrochloric acid. So hydrochloric acid does more than just break down protein, in a sense, right? That's the biggest thing. It helps break down the protein particles into a smaller formation so that then the pancreas can release what's called protease to break down the rest of that protein. But the hydrochloric acid also acts as a buffer against anything that comes in contact with it. So it is the organisms that you're breathing or eating on a day-to-day basis, because we have pesticides, we have parasites, we have bacterias, we have viruses, we have all those things. We have worms that are on our food. They're on our food every day. We're breathing them in every day. Underneath the fingernails. If someone has long fingernails, that's where that all harbors. It's where it sticks. And then you pick up food and you put it in your mouth and you're literally transporting bacteria into the mouth. So if you have enough hydrochloric acid, that is your first line of defense. So it acts as multiple things, digestion and your immune system.
Okay. So how does lack thereof of hydrochloric acid, or too much, or just an imbalance in hydrochloric acid, how can you see that in your poop? Is there any way that you can, if you're pooping and you're looking after you poop, because that's important.
Yes.
Is there any indications that you can look at your poop and be like, oof, my hydrochloric acids might be off? And if not, is there a tool that we have in our hands that can
Yes. Okay. So these are great questions. And the answer to that in short is hydrochloric acid doesn't work alone to break down food. Okay.
Okay.
So when you don't really eliminate and look at your stool and say, oh, I don't have enough hydrochloric acid, right? You're going to have the symptoms of it. You're going to have acid reflux. You're going to have heartburn, or you're going to have undigested food in your poo. But so what happens is that hydrochloric acid is kind of the messenger that tells the gallbladder to send bile over and how much to send, because it's measuring how much hydrochloric acid is in the stomach against food. And it says, hey, I need X amount of bile, send that over. And then it's telling your pancreas, hey, I need enzymes, send those over. So then you have this beautiful cocktail of digestive enzymes going on in your stomach to continue to break down that process, so that when it gets into the small intestine doesn't have to do the breakdown process. It starts to absorb the vitamins and minerals, nutrients from the food that has now been digested down.
Okay. So speaking of this cocktail, I have a friend, and his name is Drake. And he told me to ask you this, and sometimes when he has bowel movements, and I'd say Drake is pretty regular, and he notices on occasion, maybe more than just on occasion, that his poop floats.
Okay.
And so he's asked me to ask you that, and maybe we could go over that a little bit. But does that have anything to do, or what would you look for first? Does it have anything to do with that cocktail? Or does it have or is it further down the line into the intestines? Like, maybe you could explain.
No, absolutely.
Is it good to float, or is it not good to float?
When you have poop that floats, I want you to think about the inability to break down fat.
Okay.
Because you've got too much fat in the stool, even though you can't necessarily see it, that it creates buoyancy. So it floats to the top of the water of the bowl. And that can be from a couple of different things. One, overeating fat. So somebody that's maybe on a ketogenic diet, eating a lot of fat, could see signs of their poop floating. Another area to go to would be, I think about the gallbladder. Because the gallbladder stores bile that's being produced from the liver. So gallbladder, the bile is produced of bile salts, cholesterol, bilirubin. And what that is then it goes into the gallbladder, which is just a sac. And then that hydrochloric acid tells the gallbladder, hey, squeeze out a little bit of bile here. If you don't have a gallbladder, that is going to be number one problem. It's going to be a problem. You need to support yourself with that. Number two is if you don't have enough, maybe you don't have enough lipase. So lipase is coming from the pancreas. So the bile comes in and helps to emulsify that fat down to smaller molecules so that the lipase can then come in and break it down into fatty acids. If the body if you don't have enough of either one of those and the body can't break it down enough, it's going to be in your stool and it's going to float.
Okay. So say, yeah, I am on a ketogenic diet, or I have, sometimes when I've tried, Drake, he has a diet, and he sees that, healthy fats are essential, like for a healthy body.
Absolutely.
And if secret's out. It's me, okay? I don't have a name.
Listen, we all have a story.
Drake, and I'm going to keep saying
we all have a story.
So if I'm trying to eat enough healthy fats, or what I think is a good, checking my macros here and there.
Yep.
If I'm not having the correct amount, or if I'm not having a balance of bile, which is sending that lipase from the pancreas to break up those fats, it's going in my poop. But is it affecting my cholesterol? Is it affecting, is it making me fatter? Like, is the fat staying there? Like,
so it's not so much about, that's a loaded question.
Okay.
Because everybody's a little bit different. It would be worth looking. So if you have your AO scan and you're scanning, you're going to look at your digestive enzyme section. You're also going to look to see what your gallbladder is doing. Does your gallbladder keep showing up? Does lipase keep showing up? Because if either one of those do, there's a good chance that you're just not producing enough enzymes to support the amount of fats that you're bringing in.
Okay.
Okay. So those are areas that you want to look at. You also want to look at, is the color of your stool, is it brown or is it a pale color? If it's a more pale color, bile is kind of like a food coloring. It creates a brown color.
Okay.
So if a stool is more of a pale yellow, a pale brown or even a yellowy or gray color, that is oftentimes a clue to look at the gallbladder, your gallbladder. Now, gallbladder and liver are very closely related. So if you ever have right upper quadrant pain as well, especially when you eat fats, that's also another indication from the body. The body's saying, hey, I can't break this down enough, and it just creates congestion, and you're going to feel that congestion. And if you don't feel it, that's okay. That's fine. You don't have to feel it, but it is a sign if you do feel it.
Okay. Congestion as in constipation?
Nope.
As in bloating?
So if someone has liver gallbladder pain, they're going to feel like a heaviness right under their right rib cage.
Okay.
Kind of right under the breastbone area. Another indication that the body will tell someone if their gallbladder is just kind of acting up is sometimes people can get a pain between their shoulder blades. It's a referred pain.
And that's where we go to finding the root causes of pains around our body
That's
that
right.
could be indicative of
That's
certain
right.
problems. Okay, cool.
Mm-hmm.
So if we're and you've since you've been here the past couple of days, you've kind of came up with this term of breakout scans.
Uh-huh.
So in the AO scan, how can you set yourself up for a good digestive / poop breakout scan? And I'm assuming you go to vitals.
Yep.
And then where do you go from there? If you were to look and just wanted maybe kind of a comprehensive view
Yep.
on how your digestive system and your poop is going.
Well, the beautiful thing is there is a digestive section in the vital scan. So that's the area that I start with.
Okay, so you like deselect all, and then you go and
I would
find...
really just run. I would first run a full vital scan,
Okay.
kind of just take a quick glance of what's going on in the digestive section, right? What's hydrochloric acid doing? What are all the pancreatic enzymes doing? Are any of them showing up? There's also gallbladder in there. There's liver gallbladder. Just take a look at those. If nothing is populating, that's okay. If something is populating, that's also okay. So then then I'll go over to the body system scan and I will deselect all and I'll just select digestion, the digestive scan, and then I will run that to kind of look and see like, why is my digestive system off a little bit today? Is it, is it the lack of hydration? Is it the lack of fiber? Is it the lack of the inability to sit down and actually eat a meal properly, being in a parasympathetic state? Am I eating too much of one category of food? So are my macros completely out of balance? Some people, based on, that as a one-on-one practitioner that I have in my clinic, I'm also doing functional stool testing. But what that shows me is there's specific enzymes that the body creates as well called like steacrit. Steacrit it's a perfect marker that shows that maybe the body can't even produce or cannot break down enough fat. Mm-hmm. So that is when those are just kind of indications that that you have to supplement with a lipase. So that's a digestive enzyme.
And then that's different also with if you don't have a gallbladder, for instance,
mm-hmm.
then you also need to supplement with, what would you supplement with? Obviously, if you don't have a gallbladder, you don't have that storage of bile.
Sure. So there's many things. There's through the scanner, you could do the bile salts. So you could also bitters. So eating, arugula, doing dandelion teas, anything that's a bitter can help with gallbladder. Another beautiful thing is you could take a tea, right? You make a dandelion tea, and you put it on the scanner and imprint anything you can that has to do with digestion into that. So you're literally giving your body the indication or the cues that it needs to go in and kind of work with the gallbladder, but then you're also getting that actual bitter to help with the physical process of the gallbladder. There's also digestive enzymes. Ox bile is another one that you can find in some supplementation form.
Oh, okay. So from the stomach, and ideally, we're having a good balance of HCl.
Mhm.
We're having bile coming in. We're having some of those pancreatic enzymes coming in, breaking down all the food. So now we're setting the stage for a good absorption, right?
Yes, correct.
And absorption, how does that process start?
Okay, so back to my story, right? I had a lot of antibiotic use. So what happens is when the stomach lining gets broken down, that turns into what we have heard of before as what's called leaky gut.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think about leaky gut, the best way that I can describe it to people is if you have a strainer, right? So you have a strainer that has holes in it, like you put spaghetti in and you strain all the water out of it. But what happens is when that lining is not fully intact, that it creates a permeability issue. So you get this semi-digested food from into the stomach, and what happens is these food particles will slip through the digestive lining into the bloodstream. So it's happening in the
terrifying.
It's happening in the stomach before it's happening in the small intestine.
So I could have a piece of corn in my arm.
It's not quite that.
Okay,
it's broken down further than that.
Okay.
But the reality is these proteins and antigens are being released into the bloodstream, which are causing the immune system to go on overdrive. Okay.
So that's taking energy away
From
your
the
digestion. So it's causing havoc.
It's causing
everywhere.
havoc. Yep. It's causing a lot of inflammation. It's a precursor to autoimmune. It's the precursor to having your immune system just be on edge all the time. Okay. So if you have, let's just say everything's perfect. You don't have leaky gut. You've got a perfect array of enzymes coming in. It gets into the small intestine. You're absorbing those nutrients. You're absorbing your vitamins and your minerals, your fatty acids, your amino acids, all those things. Then when the small intestine, there's a transit time, so it's slowly kind of moving through, and it gets to, there's a ileocecal valve between your small intestine and your large intestine. So it's a valve that goes one way. So it shoots it into your large intestine where it's prepping for elimination, because this is now all the particles of food that needs to be out, okay? So when it goes through the large intestine and you eliminate it, the body, you can see multiple processes that are happening. So if you're having, candy bar log looking poops, that's a good thing. If you're having like little Skittle poops, okay, they're not the rainbow. Little brown Skittle poops. Those are going to be an indication that you need more water. So if you think about, have you ever been on a water slide? Okay.
Oh.
And think about going down the water slide. I am terrified of water slides. I do not like dark places. So, those enclosed water slides you go through and you get to that dark, like I go into a full panic. But I have been in one where I didn't have enough water flowing with me. So I literally, my bum got stuck on the side. Stop. Yeah, that's terrifying.
Oh, sorry. Am I taking you to that place again?
That's terrifying. So, but it kind of falls into play here because it's the same thing that happens when that debris doesn't have water to push it through. It dries up, it gets hard, and then it doesn't stick together. Okay, so it becomes these little pellets. So just like then they add more water to the slide, and then all of a sudden, shoop, you just kind of plop out. Same thing that happens in the large intestine. So you get that hydration because it's soaking up water. That those toxins, that debris is soaking up fluid, and then it eliminates much easier. So the drier, the harder it is, those pellety type poos are an indication of the lack of hydration.
And that can cause constipation.
Constipation.
Because that water slide is
Yeah.
all clogged up.
Yeah.
And I think you also mentioned.
And some hemorrhoids. Or
with that. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And with the peristalsis,
Yep.
if that pump is still going,
Yep.
it's just compacting.
Yep.
Compacting.
But eventually that peristalsis will stop because it's not moving anymore.
So that's dysfunction.
Yep. That's going to be a motility issue.
Okay.
Yep. So, but contrary to those little pellets and too much or too little water for the hydration aspect, there's also where you've got enough hydration going on, but you're not eating enough fiber. So
Okay.
fiber creates bulk. Okay. So if you have bowel movements that are really like cow pies that just aren't held together, diarrhea, constant diarrhea, that could also be a sign of the lack of fiber. Diarrhea oftentimes is just another sign of constipation, though,
Oh,
because the body has
explain
to,
that. Yeah.
so when you have congestion going on, right, the body still has to eliminate.
Okay.
It has to eliminate. We get toxic, right? So what we do is we take milk of magnesia, we take magnesium citrate, malate, oxide, we take other forms of things to make us go to the bathroom. And
My grandma would give us dried apricots.
prunes, dried apricots, all the
This
things.
will help you poop, sweetie.
Yes, yes. So our body then breaks things down that has no fiber. And so it has to squeeze past that area of congestion and eliminate. So that can be another form. Now, if someone is eating food and they're eliminating within 20 minutes after they consume food, that is oftentimes going to be something else. Typically, there's a pathogen involved with that.
Okay. So if someone has diarrhea over a long period of time or a short period of time, so you see you have diarrhea, maybe your first thought is, oh, maybe I'm going to try and up my fiber intake, right?
Well,
is that the first step?
Yeah.
And then if the diarrhea
Continues.
You said it could be a pathogen.
Yes.
Is that kind of the 1-2 step? Oh,
Yeah,
fiber. Still diarrhea. Maybe a pathogen. Maybe I got to get a poop test.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
so when we're describing this, the consistency of poop, there's the Bristol chart
There is
that
the
is
Bristol
often
chart.
used.
Yes.
And I think there's maybe 7.
There's 7 different forms.
You got hard all the way to the middle where it's a nice, Snickers bar look.
Yep.
And then it
Gonna
goes
just
down to that.
continue to get softer
much
and
more
softer.
Softer and watery diarrhea, what we typically
So that
see.
top section is going to be the hydration. The bottom section is going to be the fiber.
Okay. And that's just the first step, right? Because if either of those extremes continue, then we may have further issues to look into.
That's correct.
Yep.
Okay. Then you're going to want to look back at, again, what state are you eating in? What foods are you even consuming? Are you able to break down those foods? There's a lot of other things. Then there's the bloating aspect.
Okay. And you've mentioned if someone has a hard time with, say someone eats a big steak and you're bloating and you're farting a lot and it's really bad. You've mentioned that a smell of a fart or poop can indicate something as well.
Yes.
And maybe you can
So
touch
specifically
on that.
protein, let's talk about the meat thing for sure. So meat, hydrochloric acid, inability to break down that protein can create a lot of bloating, specifically in the abdomen region. So when you think about your stomach, you've got 4 sectors. You've got 4 quadrants really. But that right underneath the breastbone is really where your stomach is. Down by your belly button is going to be where your small intestine is. And then kind of around it all is your large intestine. So if you have a big steak, and let's say you don't have enough hydrochloric acid, your body does not break down that steak fast enough before it transits into the small intestine and then the large intestine. So what happens is it gets into the intestines and it starts to off-gas, right? Think about when you put a chicken carcass in the garbage can and it sits there for a couple of days and you're like, what is that smell? It's the same thing that happens internally, but then it creates this gas that the body needs to eliminate. So you fart and it smells like sulfur. So if you have a sulfury smell, that is the first indication that you're eating too much protein that your body is not able to break down on its own. Are you chewing thoroughly? Or do you not have enough protease? Or do you not have enough hydrochloric acid?
So that's where you look first then.
Yes. Then you look back at the enzymes.
Chewing, hydrochloric acid, protease, which protease is the enzyme from the pancreas. Okay.
Yep. And then what happens is when it sits there long enough, it starts to feed the opportunistic bacterias. So then you start to create what's called dysbiosis after time. And dysbiosis is just the imbalance of good bacteria to bad bacteria.
Okay. And those maybe opportunistic bacteria, are they typically flushed out with the poop then? If you're having
No,
or do they just grow and multiply?
They just have a fun time in there.
Okay.
And they take over.
Okay.
They take over the world.
Oh man.
Of bugs.
Okay.
Yeah. So
on that big steak that wasn't.
Yeah.
But you also said maybe quickly, and then you can go with that thought. But you said when you eat a steak, you don't chew properly, and it starts going in that digestive system and goes through, starts going into the small intestine where it sits, it creates a lot of gas, a lot of the opportunistic bacteria come and like, sweet, look at this huge T-bone.
Yep.
Why does it start going into that small intestine before it's all
it's a
broken
transit
up?
time.
Is
Your
there
body
just
has to get rid of it.
Is there a clock? Like I just think of the when you're in a restaurant and you look behind the counter and you see a timer for the people going through the drive-thru. Is it something like that a little bit? Like, look, it's already been in a minute and a half. We got to go.
It's far more complicated than that.
Okay.
But you could, for the lack of, better excitement, like, yes, like there is kind of a time frame. Your body's like, okay, let's use this because guess what? Food's going to come in 4 hours again. Guess what? Food's going to come in another 4 hours from then. So it is really a process. And yes, there is a transit time. Your body has to utilize those nutrients and get it out because it takes a lot of energy to eat. It really does.
The conversation so far has kind of led me to how our body is trying to communicate with us. So it will send farts out to tell us certain things. The AO scan will help us kind of tune us into that communication that our body has for us. And it also helps us just try to be in tune with our bodies. Would you say that most people are in tune with their bodies and what goes on in their bodies?
I would say that answer is a no. Most people are not in tune. And it's not that they don't mean to be in tune. They just don't understand how the body processes. They don't understand how the body's trying to communicate. And that is one thing about the AO scan that is so brilliant, is that it is a way to listen to the whispers that the body is trying to tell you. I think we get so, we think about the scanner and our bodies for that matter as so black and white. But we are not black and white. We are so variable. We have, one thing will lead to another, will lead to another, will lead to another. So, no, I think it's really important for people to understand, like when they eat, how do they feel? Are they bloated? Do they bloat after they eat? Are they bloated when they wake up in the morning? Are they bloated halfway through the day? They start to bloat. They have to unbutton their pants. Do they get brain fog after they eat? There's so many components to it that it's hard to really pick one out, but it really is. I love journaling for that reason, because you can start to put symptoms down and you can start to figure out where it relates in the body. And maybe it is part of digestion and maybe it's not. Maybe it's something very different.
You mentioned recently that, and this was really cool, that our bodies are kind of our own experiment.
Mm-hmm.
And all of these things are clues into learning about our bodies. And bloating, we briefly already touched about that, but bloating is kind of in your face, extremely uncomfortable. You mentioned unbuttoning the pants. That has implications on, oh my gosh, mental struggles with just feeling like you're bigger than you want to be. And if you're trying to be healthy, that's very uncomfortable. Maybe you can touch on bloating a little bit.
Yeah, bloating, it's far more than everything you just said about bloating, but it's also very embarrassing. It's embarrassing when you're trying to, you're going out to dinner with friends, or maybe it's a date, maybe it's even a date with your husband, and you eat a little bit of food and you bloat and you're like, why this is not how the dress looked before I got in here. Now this is how the dress looks afterwards. So it also plays a very big mind game. So bloating in general, there's three things I think about when I think about bloating. I think about when we bloat and how we bloat. So what I mean by that is if you wake up bloated, I oftentimes times think of that as a motility issue, peristalsis issue. You'll find that in the scanner. There's a peristalsis section or name, which then turns into constipation or it turns into bowel movements. Are you eliminating well enough? Do you have that peristalsis? Do you have that motor action that's happening? So basically muscle tissues in your large intestine to push your bowel, your poop out. That's number one. Number two is, do you only bloat after you eat? Because if you're only bloating after you eat, that's going to be more of a digestive issue. So a digestive imbalance of, do you have the right amount of hydrochloric acid? Do you have the right amount of bile? Do you have the right amount of proteolytic enzymes to be able to break down that food? Are you eating in a fast state, in a parasympathetic state, or a sympathetic state? Where are you? The last one is you feel great all day long, but by the time you get home, you're like, where did this bloat come from? And that's oftentimes to think about bacteria and parasites. So that's more of a pathogenic bloat. So there are really 3 different stages of it, and your body will give you clues of what those are. And then it's about how to support the body with each one of those if something's going on. So for instance, you have number 1, motility. I think about X, so X, right? It's the fiber. Now, when you drink fiber, you can drink fiber. When you eat fiber, when you drink fiber, you need to make sure that you have a lot of water because it soaks that water up. So you need actually extra than you think you do. So if you take fiber and you're drinking, you already have a lack of hydration, you're going to feel like, oh, that was not the right thing. Now you're extra bloated. Why am I taking fiber and now I'm extra bloated? Because you don't have the right environment going on. So, but X is fantastic for that motility. Then we get into, again, the enzyme aspect of phase number 2. And then, of course, we have phase 3, which is going to be whether it's parasites. We all have parasites. We all have bacteria. Our body is very intelligent, and it will deal with it to a degree. And then when it can't deal with it anymore, it says, you know what? Off gas happens. And that's when just those pathogens create their own gas.
So many things are creating gas.
Mm-hmm.
By the pathogens and the parasites in there, by food that's just sitting in your gut.
Yes, absolutely.
So maybe what we'll do now is I've got some fun facts / maybe some misconceptions, or maybe some of the fun facts are myths or misconceptions, and you can I'll say these kind of rapid fire.
Love it.
And then you can
hopefully I have the answers for you.
Okay. Is poop mostly bacteria?
No.
Okay.
Poop is mostly toxins that the body's expelling. So it's debris, it's toxins, it's bacteria.
It's a wonderful mix.
It's a mix of all the things that the body does not need to have in it.
Okay. So it's not necessarily just food.
No.
Like you don't look in the toilet and you're like, that was my steak I had last night.
So it is mainly food because that is what you're digesting.
Okay.
Right? But there is still there's then the toxins from the bacterias. There's you're breathing a bunch of additional toxins. So it's environmental, it's through your foods. It is toxins that no longer serves your body. So your body needs to eliminate it so it doesn't become more toxic.
So it's not mostly anything. It's mostly stuff that your body does not need anymore.
Correct.
Food, bacteria.
Hydration, what comes in your water.
Tons of stuff.
Yes.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have to poop every day?
That's a great question. Yes, you want to poop every day. You would, to have it be the most supportive for your body, it would be great to poop 2 to 3 times a day. But how many people really do eliminate 2 to 3 times a day? The reality is, if you could at least go 1 time a day, you're on at least a good path. When you start to skip days, that's when constipation happens. That's when you're reabsorbing those toxins. That's when you actually become toxic.
Because it's sitting in the large intestine. And you've explained before that that's kind of the last-ditch effort to get any nutrients.
Correct.
But if it sits there, you're saying that it reabsorbs the toxins.
Yeah. Your body's trying
throughout the body. So you're getting toxic
Everywhere.
Your whole body.
Yep. And a lot of times people feel extreme fatigue. They'll have brain fog. They can't sleep. All of those type of things that'll happen.
Poop is brown because of dead red blood cells and bile.
Yes, that is actually true. There's so much more to it than that, but bile does create that brown color. Red blood cells are going to create a brown color. If you have something like things mixed with that, so let's say you have iodine. Sorry, not iodine. Let's say you have iron. Iron is going to create more of a darker, like a blackish color. If you have beets, it's going to create a red color. So if you have a lot of greens, it's going to create a greenish color. Like your poo in a natural state, when you're getting a mix of foods, it's going to be a brown color. When that color changes, you have to think about, did you eat something, or is your body trying to tell you something?
Okay. And is it abnormal to have different colors here and there?
No.
Is there anything to
No.
be alarmed with
No.
certain colors?
It's your body trying to create a homeostasis.
Okay.
Unless it's consistently like that.
Okay.
When it's consistently not right, it's time to look into why it's not right.
Consistently not brown.
Consistently
That
not brown,
nice
consistently
brown,
not
rich brown
in a
color.
log form, consistently not every day.
Okay.
So it's really about consistency.
Cool. Men and women poop differently.
No, we are all humans. That would be
Fair
my
enough.
answer. I mean, yeah.
Okay.
No,
Fair
I
enough.
would say that you're human, I'm human. We're going to poop the same way.
Okay.
Now,
Fair
there
enough.
are different. Now, people do poop differently. Like some people need to have like a poop stool where their feet go up higher. Some people bend over to poop because it puts their it puts the well, I'm trying to say their colon in a specific position to allow it for an easier elimination. Some people have to poop when they're out on a run.
So it's not a girls versus guys
No.
kind of thing. All right.
No,
Fair enough.
you can go into the girls' bathroom and poop if you need to.
Okay. This comes back to X.
X.
Now, maybe you can explain exactly what X is doing again, or maybe just a couple more details, because the misconception here is that it is bad to flush your colon. Or is that two different?
Okay.
Is that two different things?
Very, very much so. Two different things. So flushing your colon is actually not bad. Sometimes flushing your colon can be extremely beneficial to help. So you have, you can do enemas, you can do hydrocolon therapy, which are all fine. There is a misconception, or maybe it depends on the degree of when someone does that or how often they do that. They're going to flush out a lot of the good probiotics that they've been putting in there. Right. So, so when you take something like X, right? X is a fiber that is going to help kind of, it's going to pull, it's drawing things in to help eliminate it out. But when I talked earlier about the hydration aspect to it, it's not just about having more water at the time you take X, because that's oftentimes going to be right at nighttime. So you're going to be up in the middle of the night peeing as well. But you really should be drinking every 30 minutes to an hour. But you don't want to drink more than 8 ounces at a time because your body can't absorb more than 8 ounces at a time. You're going to pee it out. It becomes extracellular water. We need that intracellular water. So that's why it's so important to take the Ionix Gold, because Ionix Gold is full of all those minerals that help to uptake the water into the cells so that you have optimal hydration, so that when you do take the X, you're able to eliminate it. And X is not designed to be on forever. X is for a short period of time when needed.
Is it okay to hold your poop?
Oh, little kids. Little kids tend to hold their poop because it's embarrassing to poop. And I would have to say that, when you're in public a lot, or when you're at work and you have to go, yeah, sometimes we do hold our poop, but no, it's not healthy. When the body is ready to eliminate, it's truly ready to eliminate. It needs to get those toxins out. And the more that you train it, you tell it no, 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 all of a sudden it's like, I don't know when to go. And then you have this erratic behavior in your bowel movements. So yes, we all love to have bowel movements before we leave our home. But sometimes that doesn't work. And no, it's not great to hold that in.
And it's nothing to get too harped on, right? Like if you're up on stage giving a presentation and you need to drop a deuce, right?
Okay.
Then finish your presentation, go to the toilet.
Absolutely.
But you're saying don't make it a habit of holding your poop every time.
Correct.
Right. Okay.
Correct.
Cool.
Yes.
Cool.
Yes.
Because then you're training your body essentially to hold on to that,
Yes.
which is then you're getting toxins again. And
yeah, and there's ways to help. There's teas, there's hydration, there's lemon water, there's coffee, there's all sorts of things that can help you get on a regimen. Some people love to drink their coffee in the morning, where other people like to do warm lemon water, where other people like to go for a walk. There's these little micro habits that can be made to help you eliminate in a timely fashion. And if it's not, then sometimes people just need a good probiotic because, but that's a whole other day because probiotics are so, there's so much to them.
Crazy.
But at any rate, so there are things that you can do. You can also, you can take some things at nighttime. You can take X if X too much. Then there's also products like sleep, right? So sleep has 2 forms of magnesium in it that can kind of touch on helping relax the colon in order for you to have a bowel movement the next morning, in addition to the sleeping aspect that it's providing.
So you're saying it's okay for us to have a little bit of intervention. So one of these was on here was, okay, well, sometimes I can't poop unless I drink my coffee.
And that's okay.
Okay.
Absolutely. We are bombarded with so many things in this day. We have radiation. We don't have the same quality of food as we used to. We have a lot more stressors. We have our lymphatic system that gets congested. We have all sorts of little innuendos that kind of block that from happening on a norm, on a day-to-day basis. So yeah, having that support is great. And if the body's saying, I need support, well, give it some support.
Goes back to our body's this experiment, right?
Yeah, and
Try
there's different types of support though. There is. So you can, if you're forcing it with a laxative, you're going to train your colon that it doesn't have to do anything. So it's kind of like a medication sometimes. It's kind of a form of medication for your colon that's saying you don't have to actually work because I've got you covered. So when you do that on a consistent basis, that Paracelsus activity stops working because it doesn't need to. So it's just not good to train your body in ways of using those type of medications.
More pooping leads to more weight loss.
No. Well, it can. But if you have more pooping, it depends on what type of poop we're talking about. Because if you have a lot of diarrhea, that is more pooping, you're going to be eliminating toxins, you're going to be eliminating debris, but you're also eliminating all of those vitamins and minerals too quickly. So you're going to become malnourished, which that's a form of weight loss. All right. So it's really important to get the integrity or the housing unit of your digestive system in order to work properly and efficiently. So the right amount of hydrochloric acid, the right amount of pancreatic acid, the right amount of bacteria. So the more keystone bacteria than opportunistic bacteria. So once you get everything kind of balanced internally, making sure that you don't have the leaky gut. I mean, there's so many components to it. I wish it were black and white, but it's just not.
Does sleep affect your poop?
Sleep affects digestion in general. So it's not so much about poop as it is more about the digestive processes overall. So yes, the lack of sleep can create a disruption in digestion.
So do you ever use your AO scan to help you see patterns in pooping? I know that it's been mentioned before to try to look at 3 or more scans to start seeing patterns and connecting things. Is there, when we're looking at all this, like an overview of what our body's telling us, what we're seeing, what we're eating, are there any patterns that we can use with the AO scan to optimize our poop?
Yeah, and I think when I use the AO scan to optimize my digestive system, because when I think about poop, I think about the up-leveling cascade, right? What's happening from the very top, from the north aspect down to the southern aspect, which is elimination. So yes, recently I ate some food and I could not figure out why I was so bloated, and I was bloated in my stomach. I wasn't bloated in my small intestine where it usually happens. And so for me, what I do is I have in my supplement library, I've created categories. So I have a digestion category. But what I did is I thought to myself, okay, I have this bloating going on. Bloating is, to me, is digestion. It's typically not really anything else. It has something to do with this this digestive pattern that's not happening very well. So I scanned on my quick scan. I scanned for supplements. I did 2 or 3 categories, but I made sure that the digestion category was in there. What I found was I look and see, do I need minerals? Do I need digestive enzymes? Do I need probiotics? What's it telling me? So this specific day that I was so bloated, I did my quick scan and it showed 3 different types of digestive enzymes. So I knew it had to do with some sort of a digestive issue. So then I did a vital scan and looked into the digestive category of the vital scan. I looked at my hydrochloric acid. I looked at all my different pancreatic enzymes. And then I looked at peristalsis. Is it that I'm eliminating? What's happening? But lo and behold, my protease came up as a level 1. So 1 and 1. So I thought to myself, oh, I'm actually eating more protein than I'm used to eating, which is true. And my body is not breaking it down very well. So I feel like my body's it's not going anywhere. It's just sitting there. So then what I did is then I went into a breakout scan of my digestive to see what it's telling me. And it was telling me to basically, I had hydration coming up. So I thought to myself, okay, I'm probably just not drinking enough water, which I wasn't. But then it showed digestive enzymes. So I just knew that I needed to take a digestive enzyme the next couple times I ate. But I also then took a digestive enzyme in between my meals to help to break down the excess protein that's just been hanging out. So it's not really breaking down just the food in that given moment, but also food that's kind of been there for a hot minute. And sure enough, so that's how I use the AO scan. I oftentimes will sit down and look at the digestive scan, but I'm also looking at symptoms that I have. I'm thinking to myself, where does it hurt? Where does it feel uncomfortable? What are those symptoms that I'm having?
Well, thank you so much. This has been so fun. Hopefully this is your reminder to think, have you pooped today? Or did you poop yesterday?
And don't forget to look at it. It's okay.
And while you look at it, think of looking into your soul.
Or your colon.
Thanks for listening to the Solex podcast. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration, and the AO Scan mobile device is not a medical device and does not diagnose, treat, or cure any disease.